everybody, welcome back to another episode of Awesome Sunday Show. Connor here.
And Pat.
So, Pat, there's a new Netflix show, kind of new, but
very recent. It's only a month old.
Yeah, and it's pretty darn excellent, I would say.
I would absolutely agree.
So the show is called Stranger Things, and it is gloriously 80s. But it's not just us talking about the show.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just us talking about the show.
No, you're right.
We actually have a guest today, a very special guest.
Who has been wanting to come on very bad, and Dentino trash-talked him about not being on the other day.
The last episode we recorded with Poeta, Dentino was texting this guest saying, I will kill you before you get on this show. So, of course, he's on this show today. Introduce yourself, very special guest.
What's going on? My name's Nick, and Dentino sucks. I finally made it, and he can enjoy it.
And you know what? You're still alive to tell the truth.
I'm still living. He said I was going to be murdered before I made it to the show, and it's about time.
I just want like an arrow to go through the window.
Right, just took an arrow to the knee.
Yeah. So, Nicholas Snyder, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
I'm actually one of Connor's neighbors for a long time. We didn't really talk that much until about like maybe 2 years ago, and now we're the best of friends.
Exactly. Good
friends with Pat. I'm a local native. I'm a hog. I'm a hangout guy, and I'm down for the good times. And I'm a big fan of Stranger Things.
Yeah, you love the show too.
Honestly, in a very nostalgic way, I love the 80s kind of semi-Goonies vibe it has to it, but like with like a creepier twist, you know? Like it adds just like a nice, more edgier kind of flavor, I think.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. So, I think it's safe to say that this is going to be spoiler, ridden.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. And love the shit out of it, and then come back and listen.
Because we're gonna go like really in depth, like who our favorite characters are, like our favorite part of the story, maybe things we maybe disliked, or maybe things if there wasn't anything you disliked, and what you maybe liked the least about it. So as tradition of the show, the special guests always go first. So whatever you want to start off with, as far as like your favorite thing about the show, or maybe your favorite character, and we'll kind of just lead into that. So Nick, go ahead.
All right, I'll start off with probably my favorite thing of the show, which was the whole parallel universe aspect.
Yeah.
I thought that was probably one of the most interesting takes on like how it was like almost like this semi-enchanted forest that just went like horribly wrong kind of throughout the entire thing. I just thought it was extremely well done and portrayed because like there's one scene where like Nancy, for example, she gets like sucked into the tree and she like envelops into like this whole new land that like for like the first I'd say like 4 or 5 episodes, right? It's like you don't really get a grasp as to what it is. It just kind of looks like this weird mythical place.
Yeah, it's like somebody took a picture of your surroundings, put an Instagram filter on it, threw in some sludge and a creepy alien.
A Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah, except better.
Yeah, except a lot better.
Considerably better, yeah.
Yeah. Without, like, the enhanced contrast and, like, extreme sun flares.
Wow, yeah. Sun flare and lens flare. Zack Snyder does a lot of lens flare, too.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams got a lot of shit for it. Although his was, decidedly
exciting.
Way worse. In terms of being overdone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, especially in Star Trek Into Darkness. And at emotional scenes, he's like, yeah. He even goes back. He's like, yeah, I fucked up.
Yeah, like that's true. Yeah, I think there was a lens flare when spoiler when Spock shots Khan, like when Kirk is dead. I'm pretty sure. I want to say there is. I got to rewatch it, but Into Darkness is still great. All those Star Trek movies are good. Yeah, even the newest one. So so Stranger Things. So you really like the parallel universe aspect. It gives it a bigger world feel.
Exactly. It almost gives you like it's like a double-edged sword kind of feel throughout the story. Like one thing goes on through here, but a completely different aspect of the story could be going on in there that the audience isn't aware of at all. Like to an extent, like we never really find out what happens to Nancy's friend Barb. We can assume she gets killed. I'm assuming, right? She never really makes like a.
Well, she definitely got. Oh no, she did end up dead because at one point
it was in the pool, right? She gets like
she was in the pool, like her hand came up and then got dragged back down. But then when
there's like that
Hopper and Winona Ryder went in there, they saw Barb just covered in that. Shit.
It looks like some weird kind of like ectoplasm. Yeah. I don't really know. I thought that was like a cool word.
Yeah,
ectoplasm is a cool word.
I mean, there's nothing really else to describe it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like some foliage. I don't know. What was your favorite part, Connor?
I really liked the chemistry with all the kids.
Dude, the kids were amazing.
Yeah.
Usually, like, almost always child actors are either okay or suck, especially when there's a bunch of them on screen at the time. But these kids were really solid.
Really good.
Especially the actress that played 11, Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah. And, like, they got someone that looks kind of like a boy with a shaved head, and it's really just like kind of delves into like a bigger mystery because like you're already kind of interested because like who is this girl that looks like a boy that like they kind of like
hospital gown,
has a tattoo on her
named
arm.
11.
Yeah, and her name's 11. So like there's already just by first impressions you're already kind of invested because you don't know where this girl came from. So like that's what I liked about the show was like the chemistry with the kids. Especially like when they like lose their friend and they're trying to find Will, and she kind of just blends in, but like not really at the same time because Mike's kind of got like a crush for her, and it's kind of neat how she just kind of like evolves with them as far as like as they're discovering like there's a bigger side to like this story. Like Will wasn't just disappearing, so. And like it made it so believable, and I just love the fact that like when they're not looking for their friend and they're just like hanging out, they do like nerdy stuff. Like I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid, but like I was huge into Yu-Gi-Oh, and it just reminded me of, like me and my friend John and like a couple other kids like we were friends with just playing cards and just like dude, are you kidding me? Like Goku can kill Superman, just like stuff like that. It made you feel like a kid again.
And the fact that they were like betting X-Men comics, like in their races, like I'll beat you there, I'll get you X-Men 135, I think it was, or 134.
It was something ridiculous. It was a known issue,
which is a really good reference because that's whichever one it is. I forget. It's either 34 or 135. That's when the Dark Phoenix first appeared in Jean Grey, which is like a really good parallel to 11.
And her powers,
telekinetic powers. Fun fact about the actress that plays 11. Originally, she was like way too scared to shave her head. And then the producer showed her Charlize Theron in Mad Max, and she's like, all right, buzz this shit.
Yeah.
She was like, all right, she could be badass with no hair. Let's do it.
Other than like 11, though, I really liked the pretty much, I don't know what the actor's name is, but the Mike I thought was like probably one of the most like developed characters throughout the entire show. I thought whoever played him, I'm not
Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah, that's a cool ass.
That's
name.
a cool name.
Yeah.
I thought he was amazing. I thought everything. I honestly like had like an emotional connection to like his relationship not only with 11 but with Lucas and Dustin like as well. I thought Dustin, which was really funny, it was pretty much like the typical kid with the two missing front teeth. It was really funny. It brought back a lot of memories.
This is like lisp.
Cleidocranial dysplasia.
Loves like snack packs, like things like that. Like I just thought it was perfect. Like he knew like where the secret stash of pudding was in the cafeteria. Like honestly, like I think just everything about the children's chemistry was really funny. Like the walkie-talkie aspect, like everything, even the cool old school bikes with the sissy bars, like everything was like perfect.
It was such like the detail in that show, like just from down to what you just said with the bicycles and like what they wear and what they talk about was done like tremendously well. And like I also like how like they all can relate with each other because they all are into the same things, but they're all so different personality wise. But they play off each other a lot. Like Dustin, who he's very logical. Dustin was the black one, right?
Dustin was the one without teeth.
Okay,
the front teeth. Lucas
was he was very logical, and he was actually probably the smartest one out of all of them. And
this girl with power shows up, and he's like, "All right, this girl's fucked up, but you guys want to hang out with her?
Yeah,
she can kill us at any time."
He's like he like warns them like. He's not right all the time, but like you can clearly see where he's coming from, and like
he's like a voice of reason.
He is a very good voice of reason, and I love that they like threw him in there with that because like as far as like when it comes to like Mike and Dustin talking about certain things like to do with 11, like about Will, he's always like, no, like do you guys not see what's in front of you? And like I love that aspect. Especially because I feel like Dustin's kind of somewhere in the middle between them.
He is caught in the middle because like there's like one scene, I think it was episode 5 or 6, where Troy, who is the self-proclaimed like bully that pees himself in the one episode, probably one of my favorite parts throughout the series. By the way,
dude,
made you think of every bully you ever knew.
I know. I was like
as soon as Mike turned around, it was like whoa to 11, and she just like wipes the top of her lip
Just the
and like
ultimate
gives
mic drop.
him a nod and fucking bolts out of there. So like she was just like, yeah, fuck that kid.
I had such like a Breakfast Club like ending scene moment with like the fist in the air. I was like, yeah, like awesome. But like even when it came down to that, like there's like scenes where like you can see Dustin like how he kind of sways to both sides, because there's scenes like when Troy comes at them with the pocket knife, like there's that one episode, and like Dustin's with Mike, or there's episodes where like Dustin's with Lucas, like a lot of the time trying to convince both of them, like the whole handshake thing, like you drew blood first, like see you shake, like that kind of whole concept.
Dustin kind of brings both Lucas and Mike together because Mike is kind of like a romantic, like in a lot of ways.
He's too caught up in 11 to like realize what's actually like the problems that she's bringing and the tension that it's.
But he's also not wrong at the same time.
No.
He thinks with his heart, I think, a lot more than his head, when I think Lucas is more the other way around.
Yeah, he's very logical. And like just seeing both of those.
And he wasn't in love.
Yeah, he wasn't in love. And like I think but like even though he was the most logical, like you still see like how much he really cared about Will.
Yeah, deep down you really do, because even when it came down to it in the end, like the scene where they all meet up on the bikes and they're being chased down by basically like the government agents, and that's when 11 like shoots the car over the head their heads, which was such an epic scene in my opinion. Like that's when you really saw like I feel like her raw strength other than like the last episode. That alone kind of showed like them like unifying together, like when they just cross paths on the bike, like the whole walkie-talkie setup, like their connection with the AV club. I thought it was like it was really cool to see that all kind of come together, like through various themes, you know?
Yeah, it actually made me want to start playing D&D.
Yeah.
Like, because they were getting so into it and like they were like so excited about it and stuff. I've never played it.
I've played it one time and it's intricate.
Oh yeah, I know it's like ridiculous.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff you got to know, but like once you know it, it's kind of like Magic the Gathering. I never really got into Magic that much either. Like the card games I always got into were a little more easier, a little more welcoming to play. Yeah. Not that Magic isn't welcoming, because like the community is like really nice. Like I know a lot of people that play.
You wanted something for simpletons like you.
Yeah, exactly. I am a simpleton. Like I got more into Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon cards.
Pokemon was more my style.
Yeah.
I think my whole year of 4th grade was like my Yu-Gi-Oh phase, and like I just made my mom buy me like every rare tin so I could just get like Red Eyes Black Dragon. And then
exactly. The thing about Yu-Gi-Oh was like it can be simple, but it also can be complicated depending on the level of play you are.
Exactly. Like I think how you balance out your trap cards and like your magic cards pretty much are like how you can benefit greatly instead of just overpowering with like the next monster you play.
Yeah, it's like you have like, oh, I have a flame swordsman, and it's like, oh, well, guess what? I have like Blue Eyes White Dragon or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I just made
Yeah.
Exodia like game over. Like there you go.
Exodia is illegal to play in like tournaments and stuff like that.
For
So
real?
is Monster Reborn. I know because I used to play at Jersey Shore Hobby Shop in Wall when it was there.
I did a couple tournaments.
Yeah, and like I was all right. Like I wasn't terrible.
Does Jiffy's photo still go down?
Yeah,
Like,
I
do
see
they
kids
still-
there sometimes. I always kind of want to like pop in and like, cause I have a machine deck that I'm like really proud of. I got like the Battle Dragons like fusion cards and stuff like that.
Sick.
So like I always kind of wanted to drop in and see, but I haven't played in so long. Like I forget which cards are like legal and not within tournament play and stuff. So
is that the one with Gate Guardian or no?
no.
No, I'm
No,
trying to think.
Gate Guardian is
That's the
much
one-
older than that.
It's the one with the labyrinth and like all that, right? It's like
Yeah.
Suijin, Kaijin, like all
Yeah,
those ones.
that like stretch of
they
episodes.
like form together. Yeah, I thought that those were some of the coolest episodes.
Yeah. Those second season of Yu-Gi-Oh was amazing in Battle
Awesome.
City.
And then that's the one with Marek, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Marek was sick. His deck was fucking awesome.
Yeah, he probably had one of the best decks out of any villain in that show. But all right, but going back to Stranger Things. Yeah, it was just cool. Like that's I think what we just did right now is like the best part of the show because it just brings out like something like nostalgic in you.
Exactly. Like I feel like my inner like kid was like relived. Like,
Yeah.
You know, like I used to play bike tag with my friends around the neighborhood and pretend to like go through the woods and see all these like things, but you actually see it come to life.
But dude, like remember when we were younger, we would have like massive hangouts. Like you were like with like different crew of kids, and like I was with Paul and like Mike Papa, and like when we'd have like massive manhunt and stuff like that, and or whatever games, like we would like it was kind of like all the crews coming together.
Exactly, like the Green Grove kids, and then you had like the Matitacon kids. You had like every crew that would like merge into one super crew.
Yep, the Johnston Ave, like me
Johnston
and Paul, and then like, oh, dude, yeah, that's so funny.
It just brings back like all that like through this show, at least like the whole time. That's like what I thought of is like everything.
I wasn't even alive in the 80s, and this show made me nostalgic as hell for the 80s. Like, this was the best 80s love letter I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it's like it makes you it's almost like it's like watching a movie that takes place in the 40s or the 50s. Like, you didn't live back then, but like, like it's a love letter. Like, there's a lot of nostalgia there, and you feel that nostalgia too. Like, I mean, I know a lot of 80s movies, just one, because I'm a nut, and two, like, all my older brothers and sister were 80s kids, and like I saw all those VHS Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. I've seen all the movies like The Thing and like all those horror movies, The Breakfast Club, like. So like, I kind of grew up watching some of that stuff. You know, I was a '90s kid, and I am the '90s kid. Like, I think we all are. Like,
the '90s kid.
Like, we are like, especially like with our conversations that we have, like, we are the '90s kids.
Yeah.
And
Definitely. I'd agree.
but like the '80s, like, I feel like a lot of the positives from the '80s, as far as like entertainment wise, crossed over to the '90s pretty well, except for like 1996 and like those like awful like big budget movies like Godzilla and like Battlefield Earth.
But you love Godzilla 1998.
I hate that
Matthew
movie.
Broderick.
Don't you have a tattoo of Matthew Broderick's face?
No, I have a
on
tattoo
Godzilla?
of Godzilla with a great lave.
No,
But
he does have a Godzilla tattoo, except Matthew Broderick replaced
yeah,
the Godzilla face.
yeah, totally. Go on my Facebook, you'll see it.
It's wearing a BVS hat.
Yeah, and it's just like, I feel like a lot of great things from the 80s. The only thing I missed from the 80s that I really wish was in the 90s was like the animatronics, as far as when it comes to special effects. I feel like a lot of CGI in the 90s was god awful. Like, if
Well,
you
I
watch
mean, you
Spawn.
look at Jurassic Park.
Yes, but that did, as much as I love Jurassic Park, it did a lot more harm than good for a while, because everyone was like, we got to do CG. And then like, they didn't do it very well. Like, Steven Spielberg is a master filmmaker, and like, he, like, whatever he says goes. So I'm sure he was like to Universal, yo,
Build this shit.
make it good. I don't care how much money it takes, because I'm Steven Spielberg. So
That's exactly what I picture.
yeah,
Steven
like,
Spielberg
I'm
saying.
sure he's a lot
That's
nicer.
what he says. Yeah.
I'm sure he's a lot nicer than that.
Like,
but
with glasses and all, just be like,
Yeah.
I'm Steven Spielberg. You're gonna make this movie great.
and that's I guess we can kind of go into and we'll go back into more maybe what we liked and more about the show, but like, I guess just to kind of conquer this topic, what we disliked about the show. And I think, as much as I love the design of the monster, I didn't like that he was CG.
Yeah, okay, I get a lot what you're saying there. I didn't think it was that bad though. I didn't like the monster's face, if that makes it any better. Like, I just didn't like the whole Venus flytrap kind of like
yeah, that was
plant-like
kinda
creature.
threw me off a little bit.
Yeah, I expected. I don't know about you, but I was expecting it to kind of be like some kind of like weirdly like ghost figure, like not like in a way that it like doesn't really have like a true shape or anything, but like to the fact that like it can mold or move into like anything. And I don't know, I wasn't picturing like this big monster that just kind of like bolted like out of like the wall, like, and melted slowly. Like, it was a little different than what I expected.
See, I like the monster a lot, because like movies, like monster movies in the 80s, like The Thing, or I forget the name of the movie, but it's like this deformed twin that's like attached to this guy. I think it's called Basket Case. And like, monsters from the 80s looked weird like that. Like, there's almost like no design to a design. So I really liked the design. It's just the fact that the execution, what I thought was like kind of like threw me off more, because there was, with animatronics, like, yeah, technically it's not real because it's a special effect, but it's there in front of them.
Yeah.
You know, and like, I can see where like they computer edited it, and it was like, for a TV show that's like such a, you know, like an homage to the 80s, probably the best that I've ever seen for like from this time period. Just the fact that it was like CG.
To be fair, it's a Netflix show that probably doesn't have a massive budget, so they had to. It was cheaper and easier to use CGI than it would have been to build or design some makeup-based thing.
I guess
probably, and to get the more of the feel that they wanted, even though it is, you know, it did kind of look out of place against the human actors.
Yeah, especially because like they never, like, the way the show starts, like they almost establish that like everything is real, like in front of you there, and the fact, like, just by what the actors' faces look like from what, like, and granted, like, that doesn't really matter whether it's CG or animatronics, but just the way, like, the show's buildup was, like, what we got, like, the storyline, like, exactly what the show means. I was just like, all right, like, this is gonna be animatronics. Like, and even in Jurassic Park, there was still a lot of animatronics in that movie, just as much as CG. So, and the CG blended very well. So, even though, the CG technically looks different in Jurassic Park than the animatronics in certain areas, it blends together so well because the scenes are cut so well. And the editing in this show was so good that if they did both masterfully, I get it, like, CG, like, you have to have it, especially today, to a certain extent. But, like, I would like to have seen, like, close-up to the animatronics. And then, obviously, like, when the way the monster moves, like, really quick, you can't have a machine that moves that fast, and the CG would have been fine. Because just to execute what they wanted to. Again, this is just such a huge nitpick. It didn't take away the show for me, like, at all. Like, I would still, like, love the show just as much. That was just, like, my nitpick of it.
I did think, though, with the CGI, like, kind of influence, or, like, just basically the overall of it, like, I thought it did do really well to the destruction of the monster at the very end.
Yes.
Where they portrayed, like, it basically disintegrating into pieces as, like, 11, like, attacked it for, like, one final, like, bang. I thought that was, like, really well done. Like, that whole kind of closeout solution I thought was really well done.
Right.
I liked
agree.
it.
One thing I really appreciate that they did with the monster is they didn't leave us hanging the first 7 episodes to show it.
Yeah.
Like, they showed it very quick.
Yeah, it's very, like...
Which is good, because I didn't want to be like, wait the whole time, just for this build-up. I'm glad that we saw it more and more gradually throughout the entire season, instead of just, like, one last moment reveal.
No, I agree, and that's what led to the build-up so well, too, for the monster. And I think maybe that's why... And some people do have... I think the biggest problem with the series from a fan standpoint, from people who watched it, was the monster itself. And, like, because everything else is fantastic. So I think, like, the way they built it up... And not saying the monster isn't disappointing.
I mean, honestly, if you think about it, the monster main purpose was really just to kidnap Will. Like, the rest of it could have happened.
They never needed
regardless.
to show the monster if they didn't want to.
Right. But they needed something to take Will. They needed him to be in this elsewhere. But otherwise, like, you take Will out and the monster, the whole thing between that secret government agency and 11 going after the guys is, like, enough.
Yep.
Exactly. And I still think, like, the whole just parallel universe aspect instead of the monster, like, added, like, a whole kind of villainous region because, like, you're, like, trapped there in a sense, like, through the government like, in a way.
Well,
even without the monster.
Like, you needed something to get between the two dimensions.
It is, like, kind of like a gatekeeper in a way, or, like, the bridge between
it's like
that,
pods
like, sucks you
opened
in.
up. Like, when you look in, like, the research facility, the way that they got into the
Exactly.
the upside down was the, like, mucus gate that the monster created to get through it.
Yeah, that's
and then
sludge
the same
wall.
thing with the tree. Yeah, it was like a sludge wall. It looked like a membrane or something. But that's, like, they needed the monster in order to get that connection to the upside down. Because, like, 11 was only able to get it kind of, like, telepathically, visually. She wasn't actually able to get into it.
That was when they dunked her in the water, correct? Like, they dunked her, like, in the water.
Yeah, they did this sensory deprivation.
Yeah, that was, I thought, one of the more interesting, like, scenes where, like, you basically just see her in, like, in an all-black setting.
Yeah,
and she just approaches the monster and reaches out to touch it to finally see if, like, this is real. Like, probably, like, that was extremely eye-opening because, like, when 11, like, first speaks and she mentions the Demogorgon, right? That's what they call it, the Demogorgon.
Yeah, I like how they kept it. They didn't give it an actual name. They just kept it the Demogorgon from the D&D game.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was so cool.
Speaking of which, the foreshadowing on that was awesome. Like, when Will, when he, like, rolls and he doesn't get the fireball, he loses that roll, and he goes, "The monster got me."
Yeah.
What happens 2 seconds later, the monster takes him.
Yeah. And it was so, like, it was so deliciously unsubtle the way they did it, but it was great. Like, I liked that they did that because, like, it was essentially like the writers and the creators telling you, like, no, this is exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
You know? And
sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah, what were you saying?
I mean, like, you brought up a lot of the experiments that, like, they showed were legitimately happened. Like, they mentioned Project Ultra run by the CIA. That shit really happened. Like, they tried training people to go through all these different things, like, used a lot of LSD to see how their minds would react, tried to turn them into, like, these super sleeper agents and stuff like that. And then, I mean, the side effects of that created 11. You know, even her mom, who they're like, oh yeah, she's dead, like you miscarried or whatever, like had this connection to her still, and like she was completely fried, and like surprisingly didn't kill herself. I think like a lot of them actually in real life actually did like killing themselves. But yeah, like that was a real thing, and then all the sensory deprivation tests and stuff, and you saw some Cold War elements when he's like, 11, find this, listen to this, and it was a German guy and a Russian guy, and like you could tell they're military officers and stuff.
I think the point you brought up transitions into something I really wanted to bring up too, is the subplots in the series. I thought all of them hit the mark. They were great.
None of them were unnecessary or like annoying.
And I think the best subplot for me was Will's sister Natalia Dyer, who plays Nancy Wheeler, who's Mike Wheeler's older sister, and she kind of goes through like the typical like teenage phase, like, you know, starting like boys and
like dorky girl to cool girl with the most popular guy in school.
But they put such an interesting twist on it that makes it like new at the same time as well as old. And again, like I know we said spoilers in the beginning, but you know, there's this guy that she likes, and like he's like one of the cool guys in school. Steve. Cool guy Steve. And
Steve the douche.
Steve the douche. And
you know what he reminded me of? Why did his name just blank?
Someone from high school?
No, fucking Ben Schwartz's character in Parks and Rec. Why is my mind blanking? You know, Tom Haverford's friend.
Yeah.
In Parks and Rec. Why is my name blanking? This is really pissing me off. Like I'm having.
Look it up while I talk about the subplot. So like Nancy, she loses her virginity to Steve.
Exactly.
And like now in typical fashion, 80s fashion with those movies, for the most part, except for like 16 Candles, which is a good movie. Like the guy usually is like the douche.
Gene Ralphio.
Okay.
Oh, I can't believe that didn't like.
It's right, 'cause you're not a true fan. No, I'm just kidding.
It was like the classic, like, oh, like I'm gonna sneak through your bedroom window,
yeah,
kind of thing.
But like you would expect, like I expected him to be like, all right, he's not gonna talk to her anymore because he slept with her, and like, you know, like make her feel sad.
But he does. He lingers throughout the entire like season, and he like becomes like a decent character.
Yeah, he like actually starts to care for her, and it makes him kind of like a better person.
Even though, like, I still hate him, like, to a degree. Like,
I mean, he redeems himself.
He does redeem himself at the end, but I thought, like, especially, like, some of his comments towards, like, was Jonathan. Yeah. Jonathan, like, when they got into the street fight, I thought, like, I just felt so bad, like, at that moment for that poor kid, Jonathan. Like, everything.
Brutalize him, and then
they pretty much, like,
they victimize him to, like, be, like, this some sort of, like, creepish, like,
and then
devil
he gets his ass kicked.
He
kicks Steve's ass and then gets arrested.
I don't know about you, but I was so happy.
Well, I think that's when Steve kind of realized, like, I'm an idiot, you know, because not only does he make fun of, not only does he like victimize him, he like also victimizes Nancy, like calls her a whore, like
he spray painted it on the movie marquee.
But he goes back and says, I just want to help clean it up. And he's got a bruised face. Like anybody that I've known that have gotten their ass beat, like not just they didn't like lose a fight and like, all right, I'm like fine, whatever.
Like it's a clear loss.
Like it's no, like he got pummeled. He got pummeled, like embarrassingly pummeled, and like. You know, anybody that I've known that has experienced that is usually like gone for like a little while. They're, you know, like they're just like they just sit and they're just like, yeah, guys, you know, it's embarrassing.
They want people to like forget about it for a little bit.
Yeah,
kind of let the dust settle.
He kind of steps up and just goes. He's like, I want to help, you know, and he still goes to the Nancy like just to try to apologize. So like, yeah, he's a douche, but he kind of comes out of it.
Exactly, when he redeems himself, like Pat was saying earlier,
makes him interesting.
It does make him interesting when it's kind of comical to an extent too, because he's kind of just like this guy that tries to act like this big macho guy, like goes around like
cool guy at school,
puffs his chest out, has the slick back hair with like the one little sensitive curl, like does this like whole thing. You know what I mean? And finally he comes in hot, like at the end of like when the monster finally reveals himself and just comes in, and he is completely baffled, like has the biggest like mindfuck like moment, like out of the entire.
What the fuck is going on?
What is going on? And finally realizes that like everything came full circle for him, and he's like, wow. Oh, like this kid is not crazy, kind of thing, like. And then
Yeah.
He's still weird, but he's not crazy.
he starts hitting it with the spike bat. That's like when he runs outside, right? And he looks into the house and he sees the lights start flickering again. And that's...
And then he's like, no, I got to do it. I got to save Nancy. And you know what? Respect to him for going back, because if he was actually like the typical 80s douche, he just would have been long.
Yeah.
The guy from the Cobra Kai would have been out.
Like,
in my opinion.
you know what I expected him to be? Have any of you ever seen 16 Candles?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Remember James Spader in that movie?
Yep.
I expected Steve to be like James Spader, but he was actually more like James Spader's friend. He kind of turns from that character to the actual good guy.
Yeah, he went from like Robert Downey Jr. in Weird Science to Wyatt in Weird Science.
Yep, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, I think that was the best subplot of the show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I actually cared about Nancy. Like, she wasn't just some twit like who was just like, I want to bang, and oh, now I'm sad. Like
I'm just a naive girl, but
And
I'm
she's the
still
only one
smart.
who gave a shit about Barb. Even Barb's parents didn't give a shit about her.
Yeah.
Like, when
Right, she
Barb
just
goes
drops
missing,
off the face
and
of
your
the
mom's
earth.
just like, oh, all right. And then like the cops
She'll
are
be
just
home
like,
for
well,
dinner. It's fine.
we found her car, and well,
She ran away.
Nothing weird happened. And Nancy's like, no, like, what the fuck is going on? Actually caring about her, and then goes into this, interdimensional portal to get her back, only to find her dead.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
What? Yeah, right. Like I feel like Barb's parents are such like an interesting topic because they really don't show any emotion at all.
Just like, oh, she's probably at the library. It's
I
fine.
think that's a point. I think that's just a creative choice, where it's like, all right, like we have to get the story across. They probably did have scenes they filmed with Barb's parents.
Yeah, they didn't want to like drag Barb's subplot out
Yeah.
any longer, which is good, because then it would have been like an unnecessary.
Yeah, it
thing
would
to
have been
keep
too
going.
much.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So like, yeah, if you're kind of left in the open, like what the hell? But then I think the stories that they wanted to get across like were much
Yeah.
stronger.
To have like multiple distraught families like just intertwined throughout
Yeah.
the whole thing, and then like to explain like one's dead but one's not via this. Like,
Especially too, because the show isn't like, you don't want to have like a downer like every episode. Like you got to have a sense of hope. So like the fact, like if I like, it would have been like a little too much if you just saw another family like what you just said, just being like sobbing and everything like that. Like like you don't see it, but I'm sure like you like with common sense, like dude, that's her parents. Like I'm sure they're crying. Like
Exactly, and I feel like throughout like the episodes when you get like that sense of hope is when like 11 will do something extremely like game changing like towards the end of an episode, whether it is like killing off agents, making Troy pee his pants in front of all the kids,
Snapping his arm. And
Snapping
then
his arm
the
was
deputy's
awesome.
Like, you got beat up by a girl.
like throwing the van over like their heads as they like ride bikes, like everything like kind of gave like off with like that sense of hope when they talked about like promises and like friends don't lie to friends. Like it was a really cool way to like end,
Yeah.
even throughout like the darkness that like kind of happened.
I like definitely awesome. But like I want to get into also, I felt like while they weren't my favorite characters in the show, I feel like they gave the best performances out of anybody, and that was the actors' names, of course, is Winona Ryder and
As Joyce Byers, Will's mom, and John's mom.
and David Harbour, who plays Chief Jim Hopper.
My favorite character.
He's the
think-
man.
yeah.
He was just in Suicide Squad,
Yeah, he was, and
unfortunately.
but yeah, while they're not my favorite characters in the show,
I think, honestly, Hopper is probably my favorite.
Hopper is my favorite
He's
character.
definitely the
I will
most
go on the
tragic,
record.
the most
Yeah.
tragic one out of it.
my favorite character is Mike, but I feel like I relate to him the most.
That's because you are Mike.
Am I? Am
Just
I
less
Mike?
cool.
Yeah.
But no,
I'm 25, and I'm still less cool than like an 11-year-old.
I think that Hopper was definitely my favorite. He was the most tragic, and talk about redeeming himself. Like, dude was a drug addict and alcoholic. Like his daughter died probably from cancer. You don't it doesn't go
It's
into
what
that.
it seemed.
Yeah.
But even like when the teacher,
Typical A's fashion, not
Yeah.
explaining the disease someone dies from.
but like even the teacher, when the teacher asked him like, "Oh, what grade is your daughter in? Maybe I'll have her," and he's like, "No, she lives with her mom in the city." Instead of saying she died, and then like it's brought up a couple times, and each time he like shoots it down, and then like he slowly starts drinking less and less up until the part where like he realizes that he's fucked because government's after him. He can't save Will, and he's like up in this whole mess. His friend Benny was murdered. The guy who gave 11 the burger.
yeah.
And like he brought himself back, like invaded this top secret, heavily armed government facility, took out a bunch of guards with fucking machine guns.
Yeah.
went into an interdimensional place.
He was
twice,
a badass.
and then saved this kid's life.
Exactly. Yeah.
He was a badass, and then he got 11 to like, and the other kids like safety by like compromising with that agency.
Mm-hmm.
So like this dude was the real hero of the show.
Yeah, he was.
Think about it.
Yeah, he was.
He started off like real douchey, like because immediately like
I wouldn't say douchey. I would say he was more angry.
He was kind of just like a bum.
Yeah,
to be
because
honest.
he didn't want to investigate like that at all. Like when Winona Ryder first went to the police station, and the secretary was like telling him, "Oh yeah, Joyce Byer said her son's missing." He goes, "One of my favorite lines ever, I think, and going to be my new philosophy from now on is mornings are for coffee and contemplation." My new philosophy. But
that's something like the dude would say.
yeah, exactly. And then he's just like,
Tied the room
I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. And then when she was in there, he was so annoyed. And then while he's interviewing her, Jonathan, and then the other three kids, he's just like so annoyed the entire time. He's just like, I don't want to do this bullshit.
Exactly. It even like stems like before that. You kind of get a feel from him of just like waking up in his like dirty house. He just like rolls into a pile of beer cans and like finds like an old cigarette on his coffee table. He's like, yeah, like this is okay. Like smokes it, goes on his way. And I think I agree with a lot of what you said about Hopper. Hopper was easily my favorite character because like the whole time you're like, you know what? Like I'm starting to like this guy. And then you finally realize like why he was like that for so long. Mm-hmm. And you feel for the guy. You really do. And you're like, I would probably be the same way. Yeah. He lost everything. And he finally grew, I feel like, an emotional attachment to like the search for Will.
Yeah.
Like it was basically like if I don't want someone else to feel that pain that I felt that day, like when he watched his daughter flatline. So he's like, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure, like, because like the chemistry between him and Winona Ryder throughout the whole thing is very interesting. Like they start off just kind of like a bantering. He's like, I'm just going to shrug off this annoying lady.
Yeah.
Like, and finally, like when he realizes that the body that they buried at the funeral wasn't Will's, and he like, remember he cuts it open.
He rips it.
It's stuffing. It's like a
cotton.
It's a Build-A-Bear.
Yeah.
It's a Build-A-Will.
Nice.
And honestly, like he realizes he's like, oh my God, like I need to do something because this lady just buried her fake son.
Yeah,
and like,
seriously.
why should she live with that on her mind when he has like a tentacle in his mouth and like a sub-dimension?
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see, like, because his plot line, I feel like, takes, like, a complete, like, 180. You're like, all right, like, douchey cop, like, whatever. He sucks at his job.
Just 180. Like, he goes douchey cop to, like, tragic when you start learning about his daughter and then how his wife left him and moved on and has another kid. And then to the paranoia, like, after he breaks into the facility and then they start following him and they bug his house. Like, when he ripped apart his entire house.
Destroys it.
That was
yeah.
great. And then went to Joyce's house to tear everything apart. And he's like, no, shh, listen. They're here. They're listening. Then he gets paranoid and then he goes into a little more tragedy and then badass mode.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He was up and down, but in a good way. It was like a real good roller coaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he fucking pumped Will to life. Like, he, like, gave him CPR. He's like, come on.
That scene between him giving Will CPR and then watching the flatlining of his daughter, I thought was, like, probably one of the most heart-wrenching scenes, like, I've seen in, like, a while.
The editing for that scene in general, like, just if you take yourself out of the experience, because I felt the same way. I was like, I didn't think about like how well the scene was shot. I was like,
your emotions were in play. You just completely ignored the rest. You're just entrapped in this emotion.
And like whenever I watch a television show or a movie, like I know I'm watching like a frame, and I'm still not that I'm not invested, but like you know what you're doing. Like that was one of the many times, but like still it doesn't happen all the time.
Exactly.
Where like you forget that you're watching a show or a movie. You're just like, bring this kid back to life right now. And that's literally, and if you take yourself out of the experience as far as like when you're done watching it and like you think about it, that was because of the editing. The editing was so tight, and it's really hard to splice really like two scenes together that really almost have nothing to do with each other, but to find a connection, and they did it. And they did it extraordinarily well. And like a scene I always think about, because it's literally one of the best scenes ever edited in film history, is the communion scene in The Godfather, where it's essentially like, all like the murders that are happening, and then it was the baptism scene. And with the baptism, The Godfather Part 2 is communion. the baptism scene where like the baby gets welcomed into God's family, whereas like that's essentially like, but like, when all those murders happen at the same time, like it's essentially him becoming like the Godfather, like he's coming into the family. Like it was so well done and so well put together, and it's like scenes have been able to match that, and like this is like one of them. It does it so good, it was so fucking good.
I completely agree. It was like almost like when one life ends, like one life begins. Like it was like this crazy like chain that like he finally got his redemption and like his like sense of closure. Like, nonetheless, that he could prove to himself that he's like, I can take care of someone. I could do this on my own. Because when he was standing there, he felt so helpless. Like, you know, you're just basically watching doctors like have at it, and like you don't really know. You don't have like the medical background.
Right.
You know, you can put a Band-Aid on. Like that's about it. But like finally, like he had life in his hands and he was able to like keep it, like I think was like that like self-defining like moment. And like it was really just an awesome way to like kind of close that out. That's easily like why Hopper's like my favorite, probably by far.
Great. Like Hopper would be my favorite character. I just like Mike, I just relate to like every sense. Like as a kid, like I feel like I was like, this was like a lot of the stuff he feels, a lot of stuff he says, a lot of the way he acts. I'm like that. I feel like that was me as a kid for a lot of aspects, like not every aspect, but like, yeah, I don't know. I thought Mike was just as interesting as Jim, and the way he like has his heart on his sleeve, the way he just like goes into situations, how he's just like, especially like, I wasn't always the most logical kid growing up. So like, so like somebody would tell me like, no, this is it, and then you'd be like, no, like I know, and like you're like dead wrong, but then at the same time like you have the right intentions. It's
like you mean well, but like even though like you're trying to explain yourself in like the current situation, and you're like, this just isn't going to sound good.
Yeah.
Like, regardless, you know.
And it was
and
like
you'd jump off a cliff to save your friend's life.
Exactly. I would
like Batman versus Superman.
Stop. Stop.
Oh man.
And
like what? So like that's like your like the reason you like Mike is your interconnection. Like and like how so do you feel like you relate to Mike like in like that kind of way though? Like growing up, like you just wear your heart on your sleeve, like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
it was just
Do you feel like you had like similar friends like in like Lucas or in like Dustin?
Yeah,
like growing up.
Like growing up, like Paul, like Paul lives right down the street was always very logical, and I feel like with Cassidy, like growing up, he was kind of like more in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
He was Dustin.
it kind of reminded us. It kind of reminded me of like all of that. Like, and except like Paul, I wasn't really into the same stuff as it was kind of different with all of us because we were all into like different things, but we still like hung out. But like still like just their personality wise, you know. And I was more like with my friend John growing up. We were more into the same things as far as when it came to like Yu-Gi-Oh cards and like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know. And but I also feel like a lot of the kids' personalities is like a universal ground that covers. Like there's a lot of kids like Lucas. There's a lot of kids like Dustin. Will, you don't really know what he's like because he's gone for like the 6 episodes
really
between
don't
1 and 2.
have any idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I hope if there is a season 2 that follows this.
You hope he's nice.
Yeah, I hope. Well, not. I just hope they kind of go into him more.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
No,
they're for season 2. They are explaining like the creators and writers already have like know what they want to do, and like all the things that they want to answer that they didn't answer in the first season, and like stuff they set up that they want to explore, especially like at the end when Will coughs up that slug and then he like flashes into the Upside Down again. He said like that they're really going to explore and get more into Will and like hopefully how he was able to survive for the longest time, even though he was just in his fort in the Upside Down, but like to keep getting away from the monster and stuff. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I just want season 2 like hardcore.
Yeah. Same.
One thing I found really interesting was their science teacher.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I thought he was so cool, and I thought the scene where he explained how to create the door into the parallel universe was one of the more interesting things because I feel like he was kind of like the kids' like go-to like figure as of like they're almost their voice of reason kind of in like a way. Like he would explain everything. Like he would take care of him. He gave him like all the AV equipment when they showed him like the new radio, and they're like all bugged out, and they're like, "Oh my god, like this is Christmas morning, but in a school." Like I've never had that, but like I'm sure it would probably be pretty cool, like if someone had that.
But that's one way he was an excellent teacher. But his best moment as a teacher ever was when they were trying to plan to make the sensory deprivation pool, and he was on a date like with this chick that was way too hot for him, and he's like, no, like, you know, come on,
He's
it's
explaining
not a
the
good
thing
time
to her,
yeah,
like what
he's,
they
like,
did with the
explaining-
special effects.
yeah, and then and Dustin's like, you said to never put learning on hold, and he's like, shit, he's right. I can't stop this kid from learning. Okay, and then he explained the entire thing to him. Took away from his date. Probably ended up, you know, cockblocking himself. But
Yeah.
like,
Definitely, yeah.
that's how you know he's a
Hardcore.
good guy.
But yeah, he's a good guy with a good mustache. So
That mustache is pretty epic.
respect to that guy.
Like he kind of remember Mr. Hauser in Brick Memorial.
Yes. Like a younger
I
version.
saw him last week
You really?
at Target. Yep.
He's a legend.
He is a legend. Like that
He's
guy
a man.
reminded me of Mr. Hauser.
Yeah, Mr. Hauser was the man. He used to play his guitar in the hallway. I used to remember that like,
Yeah.
a lot. He was
He was
awesome.
super into music.
You ever see he had like a vinyl record like of himself? Like,
Yeah, he was in a band.
He was but like he brought in like his vinyl like the one day of like his whole band, and it was probably one of the coolest things like I've seen. It
Yeah.
was really funny. He had like the hippie like long hair. It was cool.
It's pretty great. Yeah, like, what are like the major '80s references you notice? Like, let's talk movies first.
I mean,
Obviously, The Thing.
yeah, the thing was like a huge thing. Was a huge reference. I loved how the way they kind of brought up Star Wars, in like a way because there was only those 3 movies for right now, and so they only had bases like Yoda. If you watch the 3 original movies of Star Wars, Yoda seems much more powerful in those movies, and like especially in Empire and Return of the Jedi, than he did in the prequel trilogy because they kind of like gave him stuff to do, and like the way they talk about Yoda in the original trilogy is like, you know, in the way he shows, like he just lift a spaceship when he wants. Like he's so powerful, like he doesn't even have a lightsaber. Like he's just like he's like he uses the Force in like an omnipotent way. So the way they kind of like describe like, you know, like Yoda or like Star Wars, like they almost have like a different aspect. Like if it would be different than if we talked about it, because we understand more about Yoda. We kind of understand a little more about him from the expanded universe, somewhat to a certain degree. So I just like the way they talked about things as far as when it came to like pre-sequel or pre-prequel era, like not
That
just Star
and Yoda
Wars.
was 11.
Yeah, and exactly, Yoda was 11, and so the
That
fact,
is really-
which
yeah.
really is almost a kind of a foreshadow to like show you how powerful she really is, because she can that if you really think about it, that monster really was no chance for her. Like was no problem for her.
Exactly.
Like he didn't have it. That monster did not have a chance whatsoever. And I feel like that was great because like if you only saw those movies, you would get that reference so much more. But because of those shitty prequel movies and The Force
friends.
Awakens had to save it, and no, those are your friends.
Matt Hoffman's friends.
Yeah, Matt Hoffman likes the prequels. So like you almost like it's genius because you have to think of yourself as, all right, I haven't seen like the extended much of this content whatsoever. And it does that brilliantly with just the references that they do. And certain stuff like, you know, like just the way that it's shot, like it feels very E.T. in some way, like especially when they run away from the government.
I was gonna say
Yes,
E.T.
exactly. Yeah, when they're riding on their bikes, like right before she flips over
Instead of
the
flying
van.
in the air.
Yeah, instead of flying flying in the air, like that was their ET moment.
Yep.
Just
you
in
know-
a way cooler way.
It's yeah.
It was way cooler.
It's like E.T. did it in much more whimsical fashion. Like
Exactly.
you were like, I'm flying.
It was
like
the
you-
majestic, like sail off to sea kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just going off into the sunset. Like,
Exactly.
Like this was like, no, like I'm taking names. Like,
Yep. It was like if Wesley Snipes had like psychic powers. You know?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Another thing to, you know, that this movie obviously hinted at a lot and reference was the Alien franchise,
Yes.
specifically Alien in 1979, and then Aliens,
Which is the better movie.
the 1986 movie. Yes, it is. But like, you know, we just said that 11 was like Yoda. She's also like Ripley.
Kinda.
Ripley being the main actor, fucking
Sigourney
Weaver, who is the hero of the Alien franchise,
Right.
Because she took on this beast, you know, just took them on like badass, like this woman
Yeah.
kicked their ass. And think about it, the monster, the Demogorgon and the aliens in Alien were kind of similar in a way.
The way
Like,
they moved.
the way they moved, and like I guess like the things they excreted.
Like it was like
kind
the
of
anatomy
similar.
almost of like the monster, like at least in Alien. I
Yeah.
mean, definitely the head is different,
Yeah.
but like the face kind of reminded me of like a cross between like the Thing monster, like almost like kind of with like Tremors too. You ever see like Tremors? Like
I
kinda how
love
the
that
face
movie.
like flares out like that,
Yeah.
and then like almost like Predator too, how like the face like flares out like that too. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of not so much, like less dreadlocks, but like. Still very cool, but the overall anatomy I see of like with the Sigourney Weaver alien, like I guess the body, I'd say neck down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally can see the correlation between that as far as and like 11, even though Sigourney Weaver, her personality is kind of more Sigourney Weaver in Alien 3. Which came out in the 80s. I think that was, what was that? Or no, was that early 90s?
I think it was early 90s.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I definitely see like the comparison there. And also too, especially in the 80s, like in 1979, like you didn't see a female character like in the lead role like take that
Right.
into control. And I like how, I almost felt like that kind of way in Stranger Things, because I was like, oh wow, like it's a girl is like, this powerful, because you don't see that a lot, except like in movies like X-Men and stuff like that. And I almost felt like it was like, I was watching for the first time something different, even though I've seen it a million times, something like that.
The female role though is definitely starting to become like the more definitely a bigger empowering role though, and I feel like a lot of TV shows, like if you could reference like Game of Thrones for example,
now it's becoming more of a focus. It's finally getting its due.
Exactly.
Because it hasn't pretty much ever, for the most part, with exceptions here and there, such as Sigourney Weaver in the Alien franchise. But yeah, a bigger importance is being played on it, and for the most part, it's working out well. And for this Mad Max, Charlize Theron kicked major ass, and now in TV shows too, like Game of Thrones, like there's a lot of strong female characters on that,
especially in like seasons 5 and 6.
It's developed, like I'd say like almost with the exception of John, like pretty much every major character that at least has some sort of power is female, like to a degree. Like you have Cersei, Daenerys, like they're all up there. Sansa, like the list goes on.
Yeah.
Even in like other shows too, like what are Orange is the New Black, like pretty much, right?
Well, I mean, like it's
to a
takes
degree,
place in a female prison, but there are some ladies in there who kick serious ass.
Exactly.
Which is good, and that's like probably not even just that, but like there's a lot of minority actresses, and then you have Laverne Cox, who is a transgender. So yeah, there is a lot of importance now, or a lot of focus being placed on like giving great roles, like especially roles that are normally reserved for men, such as people with powers or heroes or whatever, and shifting it to the gender, as long as which is good, as long as it's not done forcefully just to have a woman in this part.
Like this didn't feel pressed.
It didn't feel pressed. It felt natural, instead of just being like, writing this character and then at the last moment being like, oh, you got to make her a woman, and then have it not fit at all. Like
Exactly.
This was an example of where it fits perfectly, and like it didn't matter that she was a woman or not. It just benefited that way.
Exactly. It just it could have been any innocent kid, that just happened to be a part of like a government experiment. Didn't really matter.
No, I have nothing else to add to that.
Yeah.
I guess you guys
Plus it
perfectly
added
explained it well. They both looked at me like I had something to say. And you guys explained it like right. I have nothing else to add to that.
Yeah. Plus it added the father-daughter, well, pseudo-daughter dynamic between her and the guy who ran that sketchy program. The guy from
who looked like Howard Stark from Ant-Man.
Yeah. Well, the guy who was in Dark Knight Rises. He was the cop that didn't want to go out during Bane's role, Matthew Modine. It added in like that weird dynamic. Like he kind of considered her a daughter, even though he treated her as a lab rat.
It was pretty creepy.
Yeah, I thought it was more of the aspect of like making her feel comfortable so that he can continue the experiments.
Completely, yeah. It was almost like oh, like your nose is bleeding. You're like pretty much having like the complete mental breakdown, but like I'm here for you. So then like as soon as she's okay again, you're just gonna. They would remember how they would repetitively just throw her like in that like little timeout cell like over and over again, and she would just go insane in there. But yet she would still, because she's young, she's naive. She's not gonna really know It's like the only source of like a parental figure she knows.
Yeah, that's what she's comfortable with.
Exactly. Like if anyone's going to talk some sort of like sense and calm her down, it's been that guy, even though every time that guy has been the one that's put her through all the danger and the torment in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. That guy is he got what he deserved at the end when the monster killed him.
They all have that hair too, like the that kind of guy, right?
It's that guy hair.
That guy hair.
Nice. That's a good way to put it.
Out of context, that sounds kind of weird, but
Phil's gonna have that guy hair.
Phil, he's there. He's almost there. He's just got to get older.
One reference that actually happened several times was Stephen King.
Yes.
There was many references, both subtle and one straight out overt when the one guard was reading what book was it? Cujo? Is that a book?
Cujo is a Stephen King book.
Was it that one that he was reading?
I don't remember.
That's the one with the dog, right?
Yeah, that's a good. It's a good movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was reading that. But other than that, there's a lot of similarities, like Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Some Shining moments.
There's one scene actually, where Hopper and Joyce go to visit that one house at that lady that had a similar experience, right? And she says, have you ever read a Stephen King book? And she starts explaining the telekinesis aspect, all that. So that completely ties in.
Because in the 80s, Stephen King was he was he was kind of like M. Night Shyamalan before all the movies, or right before all those movies after The Sixth Sense.
What a twist.
Yeah, what a twist. Imagine Sixth Sense just happened and M. Night Shyamalan was on top of the world. That was Stephen King at one point before he started writing books like The Cell.
He made a tweet and he's like, wow, Stranger Things is like watching the greatest hits of Stephen King's bibliography.
Yeah, wow.
He loved it, but he meant it sounds kind of douchey, but after that he goes, no, I really fucking loved it.
Yeah, because it was all the best aspects of his writing. Stephen King can get very repetitive with his novels. There's always a writer that's an alcoholic. And it's always somehow takes place in Maine, but
Boston, Maine, something like
that. Something it's like New England, something it's
Cape Cod.
But before that, did anybody ever read The Shining?
No,
never read it.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. It is really good too. So a lot of his novels that hit home runs are incredible. So a lot of even movies in the 80s. Were referencing Stephen King. So it's not anything new. Did anybody ever see The Monster Squad?
Yeah.
Never seen The Monster Squad.
Great movie, but the lead actor in that in that movie has a shirt that says Stephen King rules. It's so unsubtle. It's and that movie is from the 80s and so even back then Stephen King was author-wise on top of the world. I want to know. I don't know because I didn't live back then. But I would like to say maybe J.K. Rowling status.
Yeah.
Yeah. He definitely had a huge influence in 80s entertainment.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the transition to film with a lot of his books were god awful.
The Mist.
Almost always.
Gosh, dude. There are some gems though.
Like The Shining.
Well, that almost has nothing to do with the novel.
Still,
I've heard The Stand is really good.
I haven't seen it since I was over Cass's house 10 years ago.
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me is great.
Incredible.
A lot of the projects he didn't really have a lot involved in were the good ones.
It was bad, but Tim Curry was amazing. That's Pennywise. It.
Oh yeah. The
movie
first part's great, and the second part just falls off completely.
Yeah.
There's some stupid parts in the first part, absolutely, but the kid actors and Tim Curry is incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Stephen King. Thank you for everything you've done novel wise. Just stop with your TV miniseries.
Yeah, in case you're listening to this.
Yeah.
My mom loves your book, Stephen King.
So does my dad, and so do I to a certain extent. Except for Cell, that book was one of the worst books I ever read, and I heard the movie was just as bad.
Well, the movie has a 1 out of 10 rating or some shit that. It's got destroyed.
Did it go straight to
It was in theaters for a week.
Oh
yeah, it got pulled out because
it must have been awesome then.
Garbage.
Yeah, we should watch it.
I'd be down to watch it.
Cell is one of those books where it was a great concept. It was a virus that goes through cell phones and turns you into a zombie-like creature.
Wow.
And it was great because at the time is when cell phones were a thing. Everyone had one. So
you mean right now?
Yeah, but it was when it first was a
when
thing.
the cell phone boom happened, it was more accessible. To people.
Yeah, like the iPhone was just coming out, like that time where like it was like remember, hey, like I got a Motorola Razr. Well, I have an iPhone. Like
Dentino loved his Razr.
He
had
loved
like
it.
10 of them.
I had the Crazer, and I thought I was even cooler than the Razr kids because mine was shiny and red, and it played Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, it was like the shittiest sound quality. So like, it was a great idea. It just was executed in the worst way. Like I remember there was a part where like they have to like negotiate with these monsters, and it just was so stupid. It was awful.
Yeah, like why negotiate with the monsters? Like why not just let the cell phone like infect and let that be like the soul?
I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember being really mad reading it.
You know what did have excellent execution though? Stranger Things.
It did. Stranger Things is all the best parts about Stephen King, the 1980s, and Spielberg, and 80s horror, Joe Dante, Tobe Hooper, like all those guys that made all those great 80s horror movies, John Carpenter, just like all the best parts from them. Like like you know how like you have a carrot and then you have like the stem that you don't eat? Like imagine like cutting off that stem and then throwing it in a blender, and then you have an onion and you take the skin off the onion and throw it in a blender. Like you take all the best parts of a vegetable and fruit and throw them in a blender. Like that's Stranger Things.
Damn. For me, Stranger Things. Stranger Things.
That was so stupid.
You got what I was saying
I know
though.
what you're saying, but it was so stupid.
Just made like a mega smoothie.
Did it make sense though? Yes.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
No, it's not. Patch is the hater. Did you like it, Nick?
Kinda.
Okay.
It got me hungry though. But with Stranger Things, like I feel like there was a lot. It had like a Goonies kind of aspect to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you thought the same thing.
Richard
yeah, for
Donner, another 80s prominent 80s director who made the Goonies.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, it definitely had that vibe too.
Just the whole kid like aspect. Like one thing I thought was hilarious, for example, was the wrist rocket. The wrist rocket throughout the entire thing. Like he thinks he's gonna take down that monster by just shooting a rock at its face. Are you kidding me? It literally went through a dimension, melted into a wall, and is murdering people.
Yeah.
And you're gonna kill it by shooting a rock at it.
But that's
if
like
that's not Goonies, I don't know what is, man.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. But that's like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie move, like where they throw like a stick at like a crocodile, like.
It's like that scene with the Jaws. I think it's Jaws 3 or 4, where it's just like, oh my God, mommy, look at that fish, and it just breaks through the
That's
tank.
Jaws 3.
Is that Jaws 3?
Yeah, they're at SeaWorld.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so funny. But like, even that aspect, like where they, like you were saying with the cutaways and the editing, and they edit to like that slow motion last rock that Lucas shoots at him, and all of a sudden, like that's when 11 like gets up and strikes. So like that rock hits, and then she just force pushes him like or like Monster, like right into the wall, and
Right where it belongs.
yeah,
Disintegrated it or whatever she did, or like
used like the most crazy hyper shriek ever.
teleported it. Yeah, that thing was. Yeah, she was a badass.
Just
man.
Kamehameha waved it
Yeah.
just into an oblivion.
Something crazy.
One other thing I want to bring up before I ask a question is one thing that we surprisingly didn't talk about at all, which is one of my absolute favorite things about
Save the best
series,
for last.
was the music.
Oh wow, yeah, the synth.
Dude, this was like the best synth you can get, like from its theme song to all like the score of the entirety of every episode was just amazing.
That was very John Carpenter-esque because John Carpenter wrote a lot of the music for his movies, and it just was like if you watch like Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, or like like Prince of Darkness, or like any
even a more recent one that like music that was in the movie that set it up, like built the suspense, and then was very well praised, is It Follows.
Yeah, it did
like
the
when
same
we
thing.
watched this last week or whatever, like the music is what really actually like makes the movie, because it adds in all the suspense you need for that movie to like work. And it was very similar in tone and style, except I think it was just even better, especially given like the 80s time period.
I definitely think the music in Stranger Things was better. Absolutely. Even though It Follows was great.
Yeah.
The music in that was great.
in Follows was wonderful.
And I loved It Follows. I think I loved it more than most people did. Even though it was like critically praised. I can't get enough of that movie. But
it was just very chilling. Like any kind of setting I feel like they were in, like it just set like a tone, like either whether it was like schoolyard, hanging over a cliff, either in the laboratory, like any kind of thing, like it just
That's
fit.
why I think that the music was like, that movie would have sucked without the music being that good because you wouldn't have had that feeling of
Well,
dread or
a lot of
suspense.
movies would suck without music, and until
I
until
mean
it's,
like
yeah.
specifically that like score like that.
I wouldn't say it
That's
sucked. I definitely think it added a better element to it, though. Like, it wouldn't have been as good, absolutely, but it wouldn't have sucked that it follows without the music. If they chose different music, it would have been unfitting, and it probably would have dropped down like a score or two for me. But no, you're absolutely right as far as when it comes to like adding like a creepy element. Definitely did it. In Stranger Things, like I kind of feel the same way. Like it needed that music, for it. Not that it wouldn't have worked without it, but it's just. Pancakes are good without syrup, but the syrup is what makes the breakfast for you. And like that music is fucking the syrup. Right
it just
there.
adds to the emotional connection you probably get. Like you get more like just focused in. I feel like to this show, like it just adds that X factor.
Yeah. And it's just even the scenes between Mike and Eleven where like when they first kiss, like there's still like some of that music in the background, but it's slowed down. It's a little easier to take in, and it kind of gives you like that like emotional connection. Like he Lucas isn't wrong. Like he likes her.
He's not not at all. Yeah.
Plus just that like when they're in the in between, that dreadful noise that they have going on.
Yep.
Like that's like. Especially when Hopper and Joyce are in it wearing the hazmat suits, and you get like the step with like the air compressor like in their suits like going. You hear like the music going, and then eerie.
It's very like ominous, like in
yeah,
that way.
exactly. It really added to the tension of each scene, like really well. I think it was exceptional, and the soundtrack and score actually went on iTunes today.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm thinking about picking it up. Not gonna lie.
I have Apple Music too. I'm just gonna.
There you go. It's also on Spotify and.
I'll have to listen to that in broad daylight, or else I'm going to get freaked out probably, because it is really good.
You don't like scary movies, do you?
No, I don't at all. I'll openly admit it. Like I think the creepier kind of like parallel universe kind of alien thing is cool, but like horror movies in general, I'll admit, like they freak me out. Not as much as they freak out Justin, but they freak me out.
Yeah,
I don't know. Justin
can't
takes
handle
the cake.
thing.
I don't know. I might be just as bad. I don't know. I don't.
No, you're not.
I'll just admit I don't like them.
That's fine.
I just don't like. They freak me out. I'm okay with
Remember
that.
like before? Remember when like before TGC was TGC, and like we were playing PT down here, and like you and Hoffman
dude,
were like freaking out.
I was so scared that night. I'm not gonna lie. I was really scared. And then your dad came down the stairs and like he was like, "Hey!" And I jumped like from around your chair like to the back of the basement. I was like, "Get me out! Like I'm not doing this." Like that game is. I never want to play that again. I'm just gonna say that right now. It was horrifying. It was really horrifying. It was quite the experience, though. I was the kid that was like afraid of the fun house. I'll admit that. Like,
I love the Funhouse.
Like
Jeez, man.
I like walked into a wall, like a thing popped out at me. I had like a
This is why I love being friends with
you
you.
can't
Because I'm
do
like, I'm
haunted
gonna show
houses
Snyder
at all
how
then.
scary this is.
What?
You can't do haunted houses or trails at all then.
Hell no. My friends brought me to a corn maze in high school, and I thought like I was gonna lose my mind. Like it was like one of them like haunted corn mazes at night in the middle of like I don't know nowhere, and then like there's like a guy with a chainsaw that doesn't have the chain on it that runs at you. No, thank you. Like why do I want that? Like
We should all, you especially, need to go to Scary Rotten Farms.
It's great.
Especially like their woods walkthrough
Yeah.
is awesome. Yeah, it's great.
I went there 2
And doing
years
an
ago,
asylum thing.
and it was like I was like, like
It's actually really
yeah.
good.
It's like I never expect anything in my hometown that tries to do something that's so much better done in Pennsylvania, like good.
Yeah.
You know, because like all those haunted corn mazes and everything like that, if like they're in Pennsylvania, there's a million of them, and they're all like the ones that I've
There's
been
one on
to.
every street corner. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
and it's like they're incredible. Like they're like
The
there's
asylums.
yeah, the asylums are great.
Pennsylvania's creepy in general,
But
though.
New
like,
Jersey's really stepped up, man. There's one in Wall Township. It's not as good as Scary Rotten Farms, but it's a lot longer. And if you're trying to like go on a date, it kind
Yeah.
of kills a lot of time. Scary Rotten Farms is quick, but it's kind of like it's like a horror short film. Like it's
Plus with
great.
the two different sections.
Yeah.
They're actually both really good.
You can do it in like an hour.
I would never take a girl on a date there. like date would be over.
That's, like,
after
my
that.
idea.
I would have to drive him home after that.
Because
From
the thing
like,
is, like, you'd probably be more scared than her, and as the man, you gotta like look tough and like comfort her.
I'd have to wear like sunglasses
like-
at night or something to like hide my like puffy eyes and tears. It would be horrifying.
Like when I went with my ex-girlfriend, like she was like just like that. She like hated horror, like couldn't stand it. Like and like me, I'm the type of dude where like if a guy like in a chainsaw is like chasing after me in one of those things, I'm like, yeah, like come at us, like let's go. Like I get super excited.
Becca loves like that type of stuff, even though every time she gets like shitting her pants scared.
I find that exhilarating though.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I love
that's
that.
why she likes it. Like, I mean, she hates being scared, but she likes like those things.
I went to one in Wall, and it was at the Wall like high school or whatever, or not the high school, like one of like the rec centers there and something like that. And there was like fire trucks everywhere. It was cool, and it was like one of the guys that was there like got out of character for a second because he like jumped out and everyone screamed and I screamed too. I was like, whoa, and then I just started like dying laughing afterwards. I was like, that was awesome. And he's like, are you laughing? I was like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, dude, I'm fucked up.
Yeah, totally, bro.
I think the one I went to, that corn maze I mentioned, was Lacey. So like Lacey's like extremely like spread out and it's very farmlandish. So like when we drove there, we kind of got lost there on the way. So that kind of probably added to like the suspense because
getting lost anywhere scary is
getting lost in the dark where there's just like farm and everything.
Yeah.
Like it sets up to just be like, hey, we're gonna be that murdered like group of teenagers in a cabin. Like you know what I mean? And like finally when we got there, they were like, Nick, you're being like such a girl. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not overreacting. And like clearly I overreacted. And like I don't know. There was like one part I remember we walked past and they had like steel like farm like vehicles like right there that were all broken down, and then I guess someone was behind them like deep in the corn and would just hit it as hard as they can with like a sludge hammer or something.
Yeah.
So it was so loud, came out of nowhere. I like nearly shit my pants, dude. Like when that first happened, I was like, it was like the first scary thing to happen to, and I was like, nope, like I'm not doing this. And then
it's amazing.
Okay, one last off-topic thing before we get back into it and finish up. We have to go to this hotel in New York. It's the most haunted hotel in the country.
Nope.
You have to sign a waiver in order to stay there.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm so
Apparently,
down.
like, it's like crazy haunted that like people can't stay the night like or a few hours.
Let's
you have
go.
to sign a waiver in order to stay there.
I am so down for that.
I'll
buy a GoPro for that.
Straight up, I'd rather do
go Ghost Hunters.
Literally anything else. No way. No way. You couldn't pay me anything. Like no way.
You know who'd be down for it? Damien.
Damien would be down.
That's because he's messed up, man.
He is messed up.
He is messed up.
And
Cassidy would love to do that too.
Yeah, we should do it.
Yeah.
It'd be fucking sweet. Now getting back into it, just to wrap this up, at the end of the show, when we see Hopper bring Eggos leaves it in that box in the woods, like near where Nancy went into the in-between.
Mm-hmm.
You think 11 is still alive, either in the regular dimension or the in-between dimension, or you think he's holding out hope? And if she is still alive, his work with that government agency, do you think that they're connected to 11 being alive?
It's a lot of ifs. I don't know. I don't think 11's alive. I think she's dead.
Okay.
But I think that it opens a door. Well, it depends. I think if the creators want to keep it kind of similar, I think they'll keep her alive. But I think that would be kind of a cop out. And for as many things as this show did differently, I feel like it would be kind of like out of character or out of the element of the show to keep her alive. So I think she's dead, but I think what she did and what they experienced is going to open up a whole new world and a whole new set of problems for them. Mm-hmm. New monsters, new characters. Because like I would like to see like someone that's not like 11, like with a different type of power or a similar power, from a different agency. And like since like that town is now experienced like from the other world and like the monster and like it's more than one person and like there's like a police officer there that has an account of it.
Yeah,
there's way more that they can expand with it.
Well, the next season definitely is going to take place a lot or have to do a lot with the same in-between dimension that we've seen. Would you be pissed if like she transported herself and the monster to the in-between and like sealed it off so she's still alive there?
No, because they clearly established when Will's in the in-between, he's dying there because of the atmosphere. And even though she has these crazy psychic powers, she still needs oxygen.
See how I kind of portrayed it? Like, you know how in the end, like, when Will goes into the bathroom and then he has, like, that crazy flash of where he sees, like, the in-between, like, the parallel, like, universe. I could totally see, like, 11, like, as, like, she, like, vaporized herself and kind of, like, we think she died. I could see her being, like, some sort of, like, cross kind of, like, almost like a ghost, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like talking to
Force
like
ghost?
Will, yeah, like something like that, like maybe like sending some kind of like positive guidance from like that kind of like dimension, maybe, or like something to Will or like whoever may be like the next victim. We don't know.
You know what I would really like to see? If Will starts kind of being like 11.
Gaining
That would
powers
be
from
Gaining powers
from being there.
Yeah, from...
That would be tough to explain.
It would be tough to explain.
I could see him now being able to get into the in-between, like physically being able to bring himself to it.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, after he coughed up that slug and then, like, the in-between, like, he was there for, like, a second. I could see him building a connection that he's able to go there.
Yeah.
And that will bring them, like, him, the boys, and probably Hopper back to that dimension for some reason.
Like, maybe they think 11's alive in that dimension, but, like, it's just a ruse for something else. Like, something like that,
Could be.
maybe.
Yeah,
There's so many different avenues. I just feel like 11 being alive kind of like...
I wouldn't be upset if she was alive, but trapped in the in-between.
that's more like what I was trying to get at.
But
yeah.
I feel like that's just retreading old plot grounds that the first season just did. You know? That's why I kind of want her to be dead. As much as I loved her character, like, there's certain characters that like need to stay dead for the benefit of the story.
Do you think they would have like any kind of flashback of like more of her experience? Of,
Absolutely.
Like with like.
I'm not against that.
Yeah.
But I just feel like as a main character, like especially when you have Will back and they just in the ending scene where he coughs up the little the tentacle and like he kind of is like in the other side for a second. It's just like they're building up to something towards him. Whatever his power is or whatever he gets, like I want that focus to be on him. And I'm not opposed to 11 being there as far as for flashbacks or for like progressing story, but like I don't want her to be alive because then it's just like, okay, if what you guys explain, like what I just said, if she's in the other dimension, it's like now we have to find our friend again. You know, for a show that just did everything in who took conventional tropes and did it in such an unconventional way, like you're gonna retread old ground that you just established.
Exactly.
That's how I feel about that. But maybe I could be wrong. They could do something like that, but then they do a clever twist on it.
That too. I also like when they don't give like the character like that sense of immortality. Like you see him as like a main character and you're like, oh, like they'll never die, like blah blah blah, and like they go on their merry way. Like I think it's really interesting when shows like will just acts like a main character like that and they go on and they just thrive through that.
That they don't have plot armor.
Exactly. I think that would add a lot to it. I would like to see flashbacks though, to like more as to like because her powers were insane. Like just some of the stuff she could do and like to them.
I want to see more of that program.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to see more of the government like aspect as to like how that all happened, how many other people they may have tested it on, like because it could have been like a whole underground ring of them just testing like several kids, and
She
we
could
just
have
know.
just been the strongest.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they're purebred, you know.
And like the whole the whole events that happen, like especially because remember like when they establish that like the compass like is based off the magnetic fields of the Earth. And like you're more into science as far as environmental science, so you probably would
Captain
understand.
Planet, so
Yeah, you are Captain Planet.
Yeah.
So like the electromagnetic as far as with that when a compass is off kilter and it's not working, like that's the magnetic waves.
It's the magnetic fields. It's like within the poles, like pretty much pulling it, so it like gains you like that sense of direction.
I would like for them to have some sort of like Star Trek technobabble to build around that for like maybe other people like 11 building up their powers. You know?
That would be cool too. And like I also I want to see more of the teacher kind of too in a way of like explaining more scientific ways of like how the boys can create their own portal, like even without 11. Maybe it's through like Will, we don't know, or like maybe it's through themselves, maybe to try and find 11 to like maybe for like some sort of good outcome or bad, you know, like just because they're just searching for their friend. Like Mike is clearly in love it's his first like love. You
Yeah,
know what I
He
mean?
even asked her to the winter formal or whatever the hell it was.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal,
Yeah.
man. I got rejected to junior prom. So like
Oh.
when when he was asking her,
in class.
yeah, in class, like, and everyone heard it.
Oh,
And what should we call it? So like when he was asking her to like winter formal, I was like, she's gonna say yes. You gotta say yes. Come on, you gotta say yes.
Do it for me.
Do it for me, Mike.
oh
See, that's where you guys differ. She
Yeah.
said yes.
And I got rejected
You got
hard.
rejected.
McAllister was there actually.
I know. He's actually still gets pissed that happened.
I think it's funny now. He legitimately is like, no, like screw that girl.
Yeah.
Oh man. That's
All right. Well, we're at an hour and 20 in. Any final thoughts? Are you just ready to wrap it up?
I'm ready to wrap it up unless you have something to say, Snyder.
Honestly, Dick's out for Harambe, and I'm ready for a new season of Stranger Things.
Yeah,
Me
man.
too. It hasn't officially been renewed yet, but there's absolutely no way that this show won't get renewed because it was so fucking good. And Netflix is very good with giving their creators, like the creators of their shows, like time to plan out an ending. And apparently the creators of this show have like at least 5 seasons planned out. They want. And like, listen, they renewed Hemlock Grove 3 times.
And that show
They
sucked.
renewed the fucking ranch. They renewed Rob Schneider show.
I don't
First of all,
even
they
have to
gave
see
him a
that.
show. Then they
Right?
renewed it.
They gave Adam Sandler movies though too.
Yeah, but that actually makes sense to why they did it because Adam Sandler is a big draw for kids.
Yeah.
And they gained a lot of subscribers through that. But Rob Schneider, nobody fucking watches that garbage. But there's, especially because of how critically praised and how much like Netflix subscribers love the show, and if it definitely is the most watched series they've had for like one individual season, then I'm guaranteeing that this is gonna get renewed.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much like set in stone. It's couldn't come back.
If it's not,
It's like almost too good not
yeah,
to. You
if
know?
it's not renewed, I will cancel my Netflix subscription for like a few months. Not entirely. There's too much.
I don't know if I
I'll
can do
cave
that.
in 3 days.
Yeah, I know, exactly. You know what? I'll cancel it.
I would cave in like, dude, I watch Netflix every day.
Me too.
I don't
There's
really
just so
watch
much
TV. Like I
Yeah.
just watch Netflix.
Yeah,
You know, it's
exactly.
like-
Plus, like, there's all the Marvel stuff coming out. Like, I'll cancel it for a day.
yeah.
They'll lose my viewership for a whole day.
Yeah.
But then, oh no, because I'm back using my Netflix.
It's like,
Whatever.
take
Yeah.
that,
I will
Netflix.
be very upset. I will write a strongly worded email. if they
Yeah.
don't renew it. I'll start a change.org petition.
Wow.
Just like the one to get Rotten Tomatoes shut down by DC fanboys.
I find that so funny, and like people I talk to at work, and just like not like in my circle of friends, just like I see every now and then, like they think I'm like this huge DC hater, Marvel hater. I actually counted the other day. I think I have, like, not counted diligently, but I think I have more DC comics than I do Marvel comics. And like the fact that I'm like, dude, I am a DC fan. Like, I love DC comics. I love their stories, and they put out some of the best stories I've ever seen from a novel or from a comic book standpoint. Those movies suck, and like they're
Yeah,
not
let's
for the fans.
Let's not get into this.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the joke there, but
Yeah, sorry. I got triggered there.
one last thing that was really surprising: the creators of the show, the Duffy Brothers, they were rejected 15 to 20 times. This show was rejected by a whole bunch of different networks, including like HBO, Showtime,
Yep.
FX. 15 to 20 times they were rejected. But you know what? I'm so glad that they were and that it ended up on Netflix because it would not have been the same
No.
unless it was on HBO.
HBO is the only other platform
it was the
I
only
think.
other place, maybe even FX, but I still
I
think
would say
that
FX too.
I still think it would have been there would have been had to be some compromises there, some differences, but I'm so glad it ended up on
Yeah.
Netflix. So thank you to all those idiots who rejected it 15 to 20 times. You did us all a favor.
Yeah, you did. I mean, I think that's just another solidification that network television's kind of on its way out as far as
Yeah.
when it comes to like decent programming.
Well, Netflix has more subscribers than cable does, like any cable
yeah, that's amazing.
worldwide. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up here. Let us know what you thought of Stranger Things, who your favorite character was, any theories you got, your least favorite characters if you think, Connor's a little bitch, or whatever.
I think everyone just thinks that.
Yeah. Or if you want to say something nice about him, I guess you can.
But it's all right because like everyone just talks shit about you.
That's fine. I talk shit about myself all the time. It's deserved. I know. But thank you, Nick, for coming on.
Yeah, Nick, you popped your cherry, man.
Yo, it's been an awesome time. I definitely would love to come back. And yeah,
He blended very well.
Yes, he natural.
Yeah, you were kind of a natural on here.
See, I'm telling you,
and you know
Dentino doesn't know anything
I'm
about
glad
me.
that you watched Stranger Things because when we were planning it today, or the other day, I was going to ask you if you watched Stranger Things, and then when you came on, I was like,
Yeah.
that. And then today, I was like, Connor, we got to record tonight because we can't this weekend. I want Snyder on. I know he wants to be on. Ask me to watch Stranger Things. If not, he'll pick whatever. And then perfectly worked out that you watched.
Oh, well, Stranger Things is the shit. Dentino can eat shit, and it's good to be back. And I'm on, and I can't wait to come back. It's been awesome. It's been awesome.
It was a good time, man. Thanks for coming on.
So, guys, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes and Podbean. Rate us on both Podbean and iTunes. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Awesome Sunday Show.
Follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @AwesomeSunShow. And
you want to say it this time?
What?
The thing you normally say that I usually don't let you say.
I'm kind of over it, but I would love to say it. Twitter, fuck off, because I wanted to be @Awesome Sunday Show, but because of your character restrictions, I had to make it @Awesome Sun Show. Thank you, Pat. But also follow our individual Twitters. I am @LessThanConnor.
I'm @RickPatMick.
I'm @Nick_Sny.
I like that. I like it.
Yeah.
It should be @Sny
Or like @Hogmaster69.
That's what you need to change it to right now.
Right now.
I think-
@Hogmaster69.
I think that's gonna be my new name.
That's what we should do.
That, like, if you ever like branched out and we inspired you to start your own podcast, it should be the Hogmaster69 podcast.
It's Hogs and the Boys.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect.
Oh man.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Have a good Sunday. Take it easy.
Peace.
Late.
Wow.